Okay, today we're going to do what I call our quick and dirty hive inspections. Instead of going through each hive frame by frame, we crack between our two brood boxes and have a look up into the top box and down into the bottom box, and then kind of make decisions about what needs to be done from there. This saves us a lot of time because we have a lot of hives and going through all of them is very time consuming. And it also saves a bit of disturbance to the bees if we can at a glance tell that everything is okay, or just that they need another box added to the top because they're ready to make us some honey. I don't recommend that new beekeepers suddenly move to this manner of inspecting. I think as a new beekeeper, it's really important to get to know your bees and the setup of your hive and to keep doing those frame by frame inspections. However, it's nice to know how to do this so that if you're ever in a hurry, or if the weather is just not great for really bringing every frame out, but you want to have a quick look, you know how we do it. So I'm gonna go through each of these three hives. Hopefully we'll see some different things and I'll walk you through what I'm looking at and what I'm doing. Give them a little smoke in the front. These are just our attic boxes. I do have a video on how we use our attic boxes. Right now they are hiding our spring buckets, which are empty, but we don't have all the plugs, so they're still just kind of blocking that top hole for us. Now I do crack and look from above, but at this point I don't give the bees any smoke from the top unless they're really starting to come out at me. Then I'll give them a gentle puff. But instead of driving the bees down, I actually want to, when I crack the two boxes open, to drive them up so that I can see in between. So I get my fingers in between. Sometimes they'll be really sticky. If they've built up a lot of burr comb, you really have to yank sometimes. This one wasn't too bad. And then I just pull it back just like half an inch so that when I tip it up, it has something to rest on and I'm not worried about it sliding down the front. Now I can easily hold this box with one hand, to use my hive tool with the other hand, to run the smoker with the other hand. I'm very comfortable. I'm not even holding any weight. I'm really just balancing this up here. You do want to tilt it onto its short edge like this. Obviously, if you tilt it onto a side edge, then all those frames are gonna like sway over and crush the bees between them. So now looking up from below, I'm looking into both boxes at once. And to get a better view, I can smoke these bees down and these bees up. Now this is also a good opportunity to scrape off some of that burr comb, especially if it was really sticking your boxes together. That makes it easier to pull frames from the top when you eventually need to. So I'm gonna go ahead and scrape. This one I don't have a lot of exposed drone brood, but if I did, I would also be pausing here to see any mites that might be crawling out of that drone comb. This does not replace a mite test. It just, if I see one or two, I don't panic. It just reminds me that I should get around to mite testing. If I see a whole bunch, I'm gonna test and treat right away because that's an obvious sign of a problem. A little more smoke before I scrape because they came back. Now I just use the end of my hive tool to scrape off these bits of wax. We come around and collect them later with our wax bucket. I even scrape them off the side if there is any brood in them, and they'll get cleaned off by ants or bees or birds or whatever, and I come back in a few days to collect that wax if it has lots of stuff in it. I can also now look up from the bottom, so I can get my head right down here and look up. And when I'm doing that, I'm looking for swarm cells. This is where we tend to find most swarm cells. If I start to see evidence of swarminess, I'm gonna go through much more closely, but I can usually rule out swarminess by just looking up at the bottom. I see one little cup here. I'm not zoomed in right now. I'll zoom in on the next two to really show you closer what I'm looking at, but this is how I look up. Any little holes that are looking right back at you are swarm cells. They might just be swarm cups, that means there's nothing in them yet, or if you can look up into them and see an egg or royal jelly or a larva, then they are cells, and it means your bees are getting much more serious about thinking of swarming. Okay. So when I am satisfied with that, I just gently replace this top box, remembering to scoot it back forward right onto the edge so that they sit nice and flush with each other. At this point, this box is all drawn out. If I was hoping for them to draw out some more comb, this is where I would look and potentially move some frames into the middle. I'm quite satisfied with the way that these bees are spread through their boxes right now, and I can see they still have room to grow. So I am just going to replace the lid on this one. And that has told me at a glance that this hive is doing okay. If I saw anything that gave me reason to worry, if there were fewer bees than I expected, or if they were covering very few frames, especially in that top box, then it would cue me to take more time and go through the rest of the hive. So there is number one, and kind of the basics of like how I move things around to do these quick and dirty hive inspections. The next time I come on, I'm gonna show you some kind of close-ups here when I go into these next two boxes. All right, now this is like front row seats here. I also smell some bananas, so hopefully they're not gonna be too grumpy at the camera, which they sometimes are. So I've slid it back a little bit, and I am popping up the lid. Let me just adjust this. There we go, so you can see what I'm looking at and those beautiful mountains in the distance. Now there wasn't, again, too much brood comb there, which is nice, and things are not stuck together. I don't need to scrape anything off, but let me just show you what I can see here. You can definitely count a number of swarm cups. You can see them all along this frame right here. This frame is broken, so it's hanging down awkwardly. I might try and get that out of there and replace it. A couple more swarm cups here. I can look right up into those and see that there is nothing in them. I can also tell that they're just tapering in too quickly, so they're not serious about using them yet. But just to stop that up a little bit more, I just gently crush those with my hive tool. Now I can also look right up in between frames here, and you can smoke your bees even further out of the way, but when I was looking down into the frames, it really looked like I had full coverage here. But when I'm looking up, I can see that they're not active on this frame. They're active only on half of this frame. And then really it's kind of these five where most of the action is. And I can even see up in far enough to see that there is quite a bit of capped brood in there, which I like to see. So 1, 2, 3, 4 from the right is that broken frame that I'm gonna have a look at. If it has brood all over it, I'm not gonna take it out right now. I'm just gonna deal with it and take care of it this fall. So we'll pop that one out and have a look. But otherwise, I can see that the population is really good across this hive. I don't see anything to be concerned about, and I know that they are not imminently swarmy. You get out of the way before we close her up. There we go. Okay, we'll have a look at this one together as well. So I use my hive tool to crack the boxes. I scooch it back, and then I lift it up, and then I can easily balance it there with my hand. Now this population is not quite where I want it for a hive that we have at some point added a second box to. So right away I can see that because I'm not only looking from the top, I'm seeing into both boxes, and they're only active on kind of the middle 4 frames here and the middle 3 or 4 frames up there. So we'll still give a little smoke and a little scrape here. There's a bit of drone brood, so I'm going to pause and have a look, see if I see any mites crawling around out of it. I don't. Get out of the way, bees. Go. Scrape off that chunk. Okay, but I am, based on what I'm seeing here, going to take the time to go in to this hive and see why its population is not where I would expect it to be, especially since they have all or mostly built comb here. They don't have the task of drawing out comb. So I'll pop the camera up so you're at my level and we'll have a look. Okay, so we're in the top box here. I find when bees are really vertical within a hive that they tend to have most of their brood and action in the top, so that's where I start. So now I'm going to smoke them back down so that I can get my big fingers in here. Always start by removing an edge frame, and I leave it out even if there's bees on it so that I have lots of room to separate these. And again, because this is the quick and dirty, I am just cruising right to the middle where I expect to see sheets of capped brood. And, you know, that's actually not bad at all. So I'm gonna make sure I also see eggs, which I do. And based on that one frame, I'm no longer worried about this hive. I see eggs, it's a good brood pattern. So they are clearly just recovering from the splits that we did a couple weeks ago, but they are well on their way, and I'm going to put things back together. I just want to finish by saying that this is not meant to be a replacement for a good, thorough hive inspection. You need to be doing regular hive inspections on your hives. This is just what we do in between our more complete hive inspections. When we want to check whether a hive is, or all of our hives, whether they are getting ready to swarm, whether they need more space or are ready for a honey super to be added, and whether there is any really alarming change in their health. If a population is dwindling instead of growing, for an example, or isn't growing as we expected. But we are still going to go through and do those really regular hive inspections as often as we can. Hope you learned something. Thanks for watching.